Black, Indigenous people of color are the Asian American, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander owned businesses. Black, African American, we have to distinguish those two because not all Black have African descent on them. Hispanic and Latino American and Native American. So we want to make sure, kind of clarify that with everyone about who we call minority businesses. So this session we're joined by three great leaders in their organizations and institution. They are all advocates and continue advocating, supporting, upholding, and tracking supplier diversity, or you can also known as the strategic sourcing, also known as procurement diversity. There's so many, whatever that keyword within in their respective workplaces. So our goal here is to equip you all and whoever is coming here today with information from these three different entities to engage with them. They can also give us some working tools in our tool belts to get those contracting maybe in their company or it could be in their spheres. Supporting all of the small businesses in the community and walking out of this session to have basically to this summit that has an actionable information, not just you come out of here and we were talking about it. I don't want my audience to be walking out of here and like, okay, what are we going to do now? Like, okay, great info. So let's do this. I'm going to introduce the three STEAM panel that I have here. We're going to start with Dylan Johnson. Did I say that correctly? Dylan Johnson of Washington Gas. Dylan is a highly accomplished professional with an impressive 20 years track record in the construction and supplier diversity industry. We were just talking about it. There's engineering, there's contractors outside that needs to hear you today because there's some opportunities that are incoming. So throughout her career, she has held key management positions in renowned organizations. We were just talking about Amazon, Skanska, USA, and then MWAA as well, so which is the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, and then the WMATA, or the Metro. So there's a lot of experience that you can share later on for us today, but good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. Our next in the panel is this gentleman right next to me, Christoph Banis, from McCormick Flavor Solutions, or McCormick and Company. So he's been a champion of change with a passion around driving inclusion in both his personal and professional life. At McCormick and Company, he is the senior marketing manager of hot sauce brands like Frank Red Hot. You see them on the shelf, right? And I was just saying to him, the most popular is probably the Old Bay. And Cholula, charged with developing and driving strategy for the branded food service division. In addition to his line function, he works closely with the company's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or DE&I, and is serving his second year as the co-chair for their PRISM. That's the McCormick Employee Ambassador Group, or EAG, dedicated to advocating for the LGBT community and its allies outside of McCormick. He's sitting as a board of member for Maryland LGBTQ+ Chamber of Commerce, and that's how we met.
Yep.
Right? Welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. And last but not least, Anthony or Tony from Harmon from University of Maryland, manager of business inclusion and supplier diversity, University of Maryland, hometown California, Los Angeles. Okay, but another HBCU graduate, Howard University. I know someone from Morgan here, right? So, and then you have the JD as well at Howard University.
Yes, sir.
And then MBA at University of Maryland. This one is something of background. Practiced family, criminal, and small business law for 17 years. Assistant director in risk, state, and assessment management at Howard University, and procurement as well at Howard University. So there's a lot of knowledge that you can open up here. Yeah. And I was talking to a couple of people here earlier about they saw the MDOT table. I was like, I didn't realize there's so many of those certifications. So I think you're going to talk to us about that. But welcome, the three of you. So we're going to dive, I think we have to share a microphone, right? Okay. So, so any one of you can start with this. Talk to us about your company's program and what do you call it in your institution, the objectives, and what are you looking for in an instant?
Would you like for me to?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with you.
Well, yeah, at the University of Maryland, we have given it this long title, Business Inclusion and Supplier Diversity, in order to try to capture the entire mission of not only bringing in the different types of businesses, but then also create that supplier diversity in terms of who is giving those services. So there's a mission at the University of Maryland to not only open up the purse gates, so to speak, for businesses of diverse backgrounds, but then also stretch that inclusion to all levels of business. For instance, a lot of the businesses of color tend to get very niched into very specific types of businesses and services, and there's a greater desire at the University of Maryland, and I am even pushing that a little further to include these businesses of color in those types of services and businesses that are not traditionally, where they're not traditionally represented. So there's this huge push for financial services, for legal services, for, as we saw with the last panel, the technology, IT, and even the AI universes, to get more people of color into those positions as well. It's very easy to say, okay, we can get, especially black and brown, to be involved with the construction side or the services side. But we've started to branch that out to make sure that we see that type of inclusion in some of these higher levels of services, where not only is there a deeper and more in-depth engagement with the university, but that ticket value is higher too, so there's a greater inclusion with regard to the money. And so that's part of the mission at the University of Maryland now. Our past president was, I'm gonna say, he was pretty good. I'd probably have given him a B in terms of the level of passion for this, you know what I mean? The new president, he's on fire. And he's on fire because the governor's on fire. The governor was a small businessman, African American, and he's a veteran. So he falls under all three of the categories, and so he's knocking on the door saying, what we doing?
It's a big competition because Bowie, Morgan State, they're very active on sourcing out.
They are.
The BIPOC business owners for contracts. Mm-hmm. There are millions and millions of dollars out there. So
exactly, and so, and I'm not being wordy, but that's the reason. That's the greater mission of my department now. Yeah. And I'm trying to attack it with that same kind of passion because folk are watching.
Right. No. How about Washington Gas?
I don't know if you need it. Right?
So Washington Gas has been really involved in the community for a really long time. Like, similar to myself, Washington Gas have been doing this before it actually had a name, right? So not only does Washington Gas focus on supply diversity and working with diverse suppliers, but we also hold our subcontractors that are non-diverse accountable as well. Mm-hmm. We're asking them, what exactly are you guys doing as well? Show us what you're doing, report to us exactly what you're doing, and then we provide additional services to help them if they're in need of finding suppliers. What I like to do and what I've kind of always done with every job I've had in supply diversity is I want to take away any excuses. Mm-hmm. So if someone says, hey, I can't find this firm, let me help you. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's important for Washington Gas to always be extremely proactive so that we're out in the community, grassroots, making sure that we can locate these firms and then make the connections. So I would say for Washington Gas, the initiative has been putting a responsibility not only on our suppliers, but also putting a responsibility on ourselves.
Okay. Thank you. McCormick.
So McCormick's been in the supplier diversity space. We've had a program for, call it 41 years at this point, so we've been in the game for a minute. It's grown, it's evolved, along with the world, right? We're really passionate about making sure that we are working with suppliers that represent the communities that we operate around, right? We're a global organization, so we're not just based in the US, right? We have business in call it like Ukraine and the UK and all that, so we're making sure that we're engaging with companies that are in those spaces. Again, I represent the community to make sure we're giving back to the community, but also making sure we're tapping into the underserved, communities as well. Make sure that they have access to the business and to driving the business.
Yeah.
That's part of what we do in the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, right? Also leaning in to make sure that those that are underserved or underrepresented have access to grow the business as much as the majority. And that so we on a, I would say, going basis, be it annually, biannually, make sure we're putting out RFPs, making sure we're staying constant to those that are just coming into the space, into the business. That way everyone has a fair shot. And I work, very closely with the DE&I team, as what you said in the intro. And a lot of them in that team, there's kind of been some turnover, as we've seen along other companies, right? But there's a lot of passion. We know that we're going to be held accountable because what you said, people are watching.
Yeah.
People are watching, but beyond that, it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so that's really what it is for.
Yeah, these are great information about the programming that you all are putting in each of your companies. Let's go into let's dive into how can our audience, all right, is there a contract there? Tell us about the process. How can a business be part or get into your vendors list? And then the requirements as well.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
did that one as well. So on the heels of what I said, so there's a program called Supplier IO. We encourage a lot of suppliers to get involved with that. It's an online portal. Make sure you get certified, make sure you're a part, and make sure you're present on that space. That's where we're really going to look for those suppliers. Make sure that we're being able to tap into anyone, even if they're not local, they're called within the country, that we still have access to engage with the RFP process. So as we talk about it, that's where I would say make sure you're focusing. Again, it's Supplier IO. We use the Explorer portion of that portal just to tap in. And as we think about what we're looking for those that are high quality, right? They do their due diligence. They are really truly experts in that space. They create maybe a point of difference from their competitive set. So we always want to make sure that we're giving everyone a fair shot. You don't have to be the number one, because we know at some point number two becomes number one, right? So just make sure that you're accessible and visible and engaged. That's a piece of it, and make sure you're attending moments like this. So we just had a conversation, right? So I'm gonna put you in touch with some folks that I think could help. Just in the way of engagements, like little stuff like that.
Is there any certification that you need initially, or?
Yes, so I would say make sure you are certified, and that's to make sure that you are tied to, call it 51% representative of that underserved community. Make sure that that is clear in your tax ID form and all that, which is part of the Supplier IO portal. You'll actually have to go through that in order to certify to be there. And it could be anything. It could be women based. It could be Black or African American owned based. Really, anything it's fair game. Candidly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Transition.
So I would echo Supply IO is extremely important. We also utilize it. Washington Gas also has its own vendor portal. So if you go to Washington Gas website, you can register as one of our vendors. I've done it myself. It takes about 5 minutes to do.
Okay.
I also say, if you can give me your business card, connect with me. I am great about following up with suppliers, letting you know if there's an opportunity that's coming up. And also just between the Supply IO, also registering with the portal and then following up, being proactive with the Supply Diversity Manager. I think that's really a great way to start. I would say it was another part that
Yeah, for just the requirements.
the requirements, yeah. So Washington Gas accepts 6 certifications, and we also accept it from over 200 certifying agencies. So it's not just specific to the DC area. You can have a WBE certification and be located in Michigan. And so just to name a few, WBE, MBE, CBE with the district. We recognize actually those certifications. So we really wanted to expand the spectrum to give you guys the opportunity that want to do business with Washington Gas to be able to partner with us when opportunities present themselves.
And you mentioned earlier too, for your tier 2,
Yeah.
that you're talking to your prime. In that recommendations of list, is that coming from the same vendors list?
Absolutely,
Oh.
yes.
So
So
you-
when
you
I'm
got-
out in the community, before I come out to meet with suppliers, I sit normally with my construction team, sometimes with the actual construction companies, and say, hey, do you have anything coming up? Is this job completely bought out? And if it's not, tell me, what are you looking for? And so I can say, I right now need a concrete company. And so you would not be hired from Washington Gas directly. However, I will refer you to one of our contractors.
That's huge, because some of the primes, sometimes, they're out of resources and they're trying to find that needle in the haystack. Meanwhile, there's a list that, hey, here you go. Thank you.
And I will also add to that, our contractors take this extremely serious as well, meaning supply diversity. So we have such a great relationship with them. I meet with them on a monthly basis. We're constantly talking about ways to improve.
Wow,
And so that just establishing that relationship is really helpful.
perfect. Tony?
Yeah, so I love what you guys have been saying so far. Yeah, I'm the person up here who actually represents a state agency, and that the University of Maryland is literally considered a state agency. But the cool part about, so there's two things, and we were just talking about this. So with Maryland, we're a state agency, so we get real state specific. You have to be certified through the MBE portal with MDOT, right? I don't know why it's under MDOT, never did, but there it is. I think maybe because they were the first agency to get the MBE program off the ground, and so it just stayed under that umbrella. But anyway, so you got to get your certification through them for minority business enterprise, your MBE. We recognize 2 other types of businesses, as I was mentioning when I talked about Governor Moore. You got the Small Business Reserve, and you got the Veterans Small Business Enterprise. Now, those 2 certifications come under DGS, Department of General Services. They have a portal called EMMA, the E-Maryland Marketplace Advantage, and you get your certifications for those 2 under that umbrella. So now, if you fit under all 3 of those umbrellas, it just gives you more opportunities to work with the 66 agencies. So while I'm sitting up here as one person or one agency, it's really 66, because we're talking about the entire state of Maryland and all the different agencies that work under that, and you needing those certifications in order to do business within. Okay? So, but once you get those, you're really good to go in terms of being able to do business with the state of Maryland. And as I was telling my colleagues earlier, we are trying to, there's a push to expand that certification acceptance to SBA certification, to WeBank certification, Women's Business Enterprise, the National Minority Supplier certification. So there's this push to try to open up or broaden that range, but right now, you got to stick to Maryland. But once in there, then you're qualified to do business with any of the 66 agencies. At our particular agency, it's still very direct in terms of the interaction. So you would literally come to my office or come to Procurement and Business Services and introduce yourself and give your information to us. And then part of my task is to kind of almost hold your hand to the best department that you can get the most business done with, or the best part of the procurement team that will, as we are doing our procurement mission, to use you all as our vendors. As they were saying before, we both work at the On the commodities and services side, we do tier 1 and tier 2. Actually, we even have a tier 3.
Oh, wow.
And, and then on the construction and facilities management side, you have the prime, your prime contractors and your subs, just as they were saying. Our situation, the overwhelming majority, because of the little boxes that these businesses of color get put in, most of our participation is on that construction side with the businesses in which I had told you before. But it's all open. Once you get those certifications and then you let us know that you are in our universe, then I make sure that you get in front of the people that you need to get in front of so you can start getting contracts. So Richie made me bring, it's his fault, he made me bring it, a whole bunch of brochure pamphlets that I will give to you all so you can kind of summarizes all this mess I'm telling you. and so it walks you through it and all that kind of stuff. And then we have a lot of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful information on the website. Purchase at umd.edu, which is the Procurement and Business Services website. And then you can get in touch with us, and I will literally walk you through it. There's a lot of online trainings now, how to get the certifications, which I pushed for. The Office of Small Business Affairs with the state has these trainings every month, and they weren't making them available.
Right.
So I cried like a big old, 6-foot baby. And they literally started putting them on YouTube. So now there are links to them on YouTube. If you miss one of their training sessions or whatever, you can go on there, you can get all the training you need. They'll walk you through the system, as well as the people at MDOT will walk you through the system. Great folk there. You reach out to me, contact me, I'll put you in touch with the person who can walk you through it, okay? So I say all that to say, come on and do business, we got you.
And Tony, just really quickly, before you leave from that topic,
Mm-hmm.
non-Marylanders, because they're Virginia, DC business owners here.
Yeah, so if you are what we call a foreign entity, right?
Yeah.
What you would have to do, so with the state, you have to register as a foreign entity, right? So that is taxation and assessments, SDAT.
SDAT.
Is what we call that particular agency. You get registered, and it's pretty much like filling out the same forms you would do to get an LLC. It's an abbreviated version of that.
Yeah.
You register yourself as a foreign entity. I'm a company from out of state, and I want to do business in the state. That's the only other hoop,
Yeah.
other than the ones that I just told you all about. So jump through that hoop if you're not already in Maryland. I think you were telling me you guys have offices in Maryland already, so you guys may have already done that, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so that particular hoop, I don't think y'all had to jump through. But for folk who actually don't have a business, presence in the state, jump through that other hoop too. Okay?
Perfect.
Any questions? Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a comment.
Uh-huh.
I've had clients use that, and it's fairly simple.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. The one that has a bit of walkthrough is the MBE certification. As my lady here said, the small business and veteran business one, you can literally do in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can literally do it in 5 minutes. That's the one on M.
Yeah.
So you guys can literally, most of us are small businesses anyway, right? So you get that one right off the break, right? And then so any of the RFPs that we put out that are designated small business, doesn't matter if you're purple, you can go ahead and get on that one if you do that 5-minute thing, right? It's the ones that are more specifically MBE designated, or if they're big and they're given to some massive prime, then we're going to set you up to make sure that prime,
The tier 2.
gets you as a sub
Yeah.
or a tier 2, which is what
Yeah.
Ms. DeLong was saying. So,
Question for Krista.
uh-huh.
Could you tell us specifically which certifications McCormick recognizes?
Off the rip, I couldn't do that, but I'd take that as a quick follow-up for you. I have no problem doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have
To
questions?
be follow up. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, so do you, because you said we can contact you and then you put us in touch with whoever we need to be. So when we're contacting you, are we sending you a CAPE statement? What are we
Exactly,
doing? Okay.
exactly, right. And what I did forget to mention is we haven't had a platform such as Supplier IO.
Right.
They just bringing me up. I'm like, Supplier, oh, what does this do? So, shut up. So, I am in a group of, an association of the liaisons for all of the different agencies, right? And before we were using most of the agencies were using this one called B2G.
now.
Oh,
You know that one? Yeah.
Use Star.
Everybody hates it.
Yeah.
Everybody hates it. It's antiquated. And so now we getting ready to jump on board there and have Supplier IO too. I've been pushing that very strongly. So I probably got half of the liaisons wanting to join Supplier IO too, which I think they need to pay me some money for that. 'Cause, yeah. But anyway, so Maryland should be on Supplier IO within the next year, I'm anticipating.
Okay.
And in doing so, we'll be able to do a lot of other things that I've been pushing for us to do as well. So that's another piece of it that's coming online for us as well.
Let's talk about the measuring of success that you've done. Is there a goal each year? What's the trend that you've seen in the past 3 years? I mean, we know what happened in the past 3 years.
Mhm.
Let's start with you, Deman.
Yeah.
Sure. So, full disclaimer, I've been with Washington Gas for 7 weeks. So I cannot speak to the last 3 years.
Mhm.
However, what I've been educated on so far is that we have met our internal goals, which is 35%. Because what I've kind of mentioned to you, that Washington Gas takes supply diversity extremely seriously. So what success kind of looks for me is when suppliers follow up with me and say, I actually got a contract.
Oh,
Right. So step one is I'm constantly pushing for suppliers to get the opportunity to bid, right? And then step two is they actually got a competitive bid and then they beat out their competitors. And so that is true success. And then being able to measure that on whether or not I'm providing enough suppliers in order to increase that number. So success looks to me that just having one for that year is not adequate. Like I want to be able to constantly push the my goals, and not only just from a contracting perspective, but being able to say I firsthand was a part of this small business being able to grow their business.
in your jurisdiction for Washington Gas, from where to where? Do you,
The entire
Geographic.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia
There you go.
area.
so that's, look at that opportunities there.
Absolutely. And even I would say it even expands further than that, because if I have an engineering opportunity, if I have an
Hint, hint.
engineering opportunity, the engineering firm does not necessarily have to be in this area, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, so hint, hint, engineering opportunity, right? For Christoph, for McCormick.
Yeah, so for McCormick, for us, success looks like, if we think about the percentage of business that we're offering, or the percentage of dollars that we spend that's tied to the supply diversity, that's a piece of it. Over the last 3 years, we've spent over $10 million in diverse contracts in business. And that's what we want to make sure on an annual basis that continues to grow. So we're being mindful in what that looks like. And then next year, we're going to be focusing a lot on the tier 2 spend, make sure that continues to grow. So if we think about the percentage of those that actually apply, and then to your point, the rate of bids or things that are awarded to those diverse suppliers, that's important to us. We want to make sure that we're giving everyone a fair shake, while also being mindful on the quality that we're receiving, and also like cost effectiveness. That plays a piece of it too. So you can't make all things happen and make all things great, but it is about being mindful and more intentional about what it looks like.
And this may be on your list, so forgive me.
No, you're fine.
So I was just thinking, for the folks in the room, what are the best practices for small businesses that are, suppliers trying to get into these programs, and what are some cautionary tales
Yeah.
that you guys might share?
That's actually my next question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if you saw, I put it in here like nightmares. Okay, what were the errors, the common
I'm
errors?
sorry.
Because that's usually, yeah, if we can talk about that, that's,
So you want me to?
Do you want to lead on that?
Nah. So in Maryland, we have what's called the aspirational goal. It's not 35%, which it was. It's 29%. Most of the agencies are nowhere near that. Okay, so there's a lot of room for improvement. I'll say that. University of Maryland, we hit 14% last year. But that 14% is almost $100 million. So, you know, we working. Yeah, 90 something million. Yeah. But anyway, so that, yeah, so it's a substantial amount still. We're building. What does success look like? All the things that Delon said, because that was great. All the things that Christoph said is also right on point. Also for me, success looks like that number increasing, which is what Delon said, because it's not just the one-off, oh, we used them this one time, but creating that relationship, because we do have these long-term relationships with most of the big contractors, you know, both the big providers on the commodity side and the big construction companies on the construction side. And they keep coming back year and year and year, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. So success also looks like, for me, when our MBEs, VSBs, and SBRs create that same long-term relationship on the tier 2 and sub-level.
Yeah.
And then, when they break into the prime and tier 1 level, that's success. So it's you know, as she'll tell you, it's an ongoing mission. And when you, especially when you meet some really, really good, on fire, and very capable MBEs, VSBs, and SBRs, it's wonderful to see that that progression happen. Because a lot of times the primes, I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or not, we can't find any. We don't know of any.
Right.
We did so much searching for our binders of women and whatever.
And sometimes, you know, sometimes, I'm going to interject in that.
You know
Sometimes
what I'm saying?
I say to my
That
prime,
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
right? I say to my prime, I was like, aren't you following Maryland, Washington Minority Companies Association
No,
to
they're
find
not.
your second,
They're
you
not.
know,
They're not.
tier 2?
So to pull that, that veil off, whether it's actual or, you know, anyway,
Yeah.
to pull that veil off and to see companies like that then start to use the businesses, like she was saying, primes come to me all the time. I can't find anyone, no qualified ones, and then I give them a list of 300 of them. I'm in Prince George's County. Come on now, you know what I'm saying? So it's wonderful to see that ceiling being dismantled, because some of those same buzzwords and you know, things have been put in place to kind of keep things.
Tony, it's accountability 101.
Exactly.
It's accountability.
Exactly.
Let's go to the question that Larry said regarding best practices. And
Yes.
kind of like what's the pointers that you can
You go ahead.
mention.
Sure. I would say making sure you maintain your certification is extremely important.
Extremely.
Like, do not let your certification expire. Continue to maintain it. Continue to make sure that your website is working, and your email address and your telephone number. Oftentimes, I have to just do a level of due diligence before I send a contractor information to make sure that the information is still active. So just making sure you keep that information as well. Take advantage of what companies like Washington Gas and others are doing as relates to, if you don't win the bid, don't give up and say, hey, I no longer want to do this, it's a waste of my time. Oftentimes, we offer debriefs. Find out why you did not win that bid. Take advantage of workshops, webinars, opportunity to network with the category managers, because you may not have won that particular bid, but it may be others. And so this is all about relationship building and just being consistent as much as possible. So those are normally kind of the hiccups that I have, is just making sure I have the most recent information from the supplier, making sure their certification is still valid, and then just keeping them encouraged that, hey, you did not win the bid this time, however, there are others.
Love that.
Perfectly said.
So I would echo the point on certifications. Don't let it lapse, not even for a day. Keep out of the system. Make sure you're on Supplier.io, as we talked about earlier, or any other portals that would make sense that you know companies are looking for. Make sure you're attending events like these, right? We're able to make quick connections, and if it's not something for you, maybe it's someone that you know, right? And just expand that. If you think about networking, that's just a life skill, right? And then the other part I would say is, if you're going to attend any of these events, be clear on who's coming from a company perspective. Know who's going to be in the room. Do your due diligence. Do your research. If you want to do business with this group or with this company, take the time to, figure out what their needs might be. Even if they're not expressed, even if they're not obvious, just know enough about their company. I actually have a story, and I don't know if we'll get to it, but I can tell you about like what that looks like and what a success story looks like coming from that. But just make sure that you're primed and ready to have those conversations, because that could be the real difference between you getting the business and not, and how you show up, because first impression is the lasting impression, right?
Hey, Christoph, go ahead and share your story, because
Yeah.
there might be some information there that will
Yeah.
click.
So if we think about, I can give an example of a time where, well, let me back up. So we don't have a diverse pool of packaging suppliers, right? Which is critical in the McCormick space because we obviously use a lot of packaging for consumer products as well as in our branded food service side. It's just, that's how our product gets to consumers, in the way of packaging. I want to say about 9 years ago, we had a business manager come and attend one of the events that we were at, networking, just being present, being visible, engaging with other businesses. And they did their due diligence. They researched our packaging. They knew what our library looked like, and they came with some offerings in the way of what they were offering as far as like a carton business. They said, hey, you may already have this, you may not have this, but this is what we offer. This is what we excel in. We think this would be great for whatever your product would be. Now, it wasn't an overnight success. It became some courting, some conversations, and we offered for them to come to one of our plants, take a look at our line, and just see how our product currently operates. See, all right, is that compatible? What would need to be true from an investment perspective to make it happen, to deliver what you're offering for us. We went through that part, went well. Then they said, all right, let's actually RFP the business. It wasn't just going to be handed over because we had a great relationship, right? We had to do due diligence in that. Fast forward, 2023, they've been our primary supplier for 7 years, and they have the bulk of our business in that space.
Wow.
So, and it was just.
Do you know the amount of that contract?
I'm not at liberty to
Okay.
say. But it's sizable. But it's sizable.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yes.
That's, I don't know if it ties into what you were saying. I wanted to know what kind of, opportunities you had available for McCormick. Like I'm aware of it, University of Maryland, a little bit of Washington Gas, but what kind, I know packaging is one, but what are the
Yeah.
other procurement opportunities that you have?
I would say packaging, raw materials, IT, people. And as we think about contractors, which is what we were talking about, right? Not everyone is going to be full-time. Sometimes we need contractor work, we need temporary. Even in the plant, outside the plant, in corporate, not just US, but also globally. So there's an arm there. Anything that's usually going to make the company tick, that's probably where we need the space. I'm not going to say that we're limited in any particular space. And if there's something we haven't thought of within that, like, hey, we've always relied on our go-to person, but we probably see an opportunity to kind of open that up. I mean, no one's perfect, right? We're always open for that.
There's also facility management stuff, because you have offices that needs to be cleaned.
Yes.
You have windows. I hope you have windows in your offices, so that needs to be cleaned. There's a commercial window cleaning.
Yeah.
I have clients that wants, $3 million for 4-year contract for a company. They never thought. I was like, no, they have windows. They gotta clean that thing.
That's true.
So-
That was the obvious things.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we have a big window bid coming up, actually.
Oh, there you go. Hint, hint. You all are lucky if you know anyone.
Right. It's not for you. It's
Just-
not for someone else.
Here's the opportunity for JP
Hasn't
now.
hasn't
Joint
even been solicited
ventures.
yet. Hasn't even been posted yet.
Yeah.
Huge window cleaning contract coming up with University.
So we got a warning for the 5 minutes, right? So I wanted to we'll do a fast forward really quickly for the success stories with anything for Washington Gas that you can share, or even 20 years of experience being in the supplier diversity and procurement. I mean, either companies that you know about the success story, just following what we talked about.
I mean, so I can say, again, Washington Gas has met its internal goals every year. So, yeah, obviously, as I mentioned, supply diversity is extremely important. I actually, before working with Washington Gas, I actually worked with Amazon, and I was a part of Amazon being a part of the $1 Billion Roundtable. So another company that takes supply diversity extremely seriously. I think a lot of companies over the last 3 years are starting to understand the importance of supply diversity in general. They're starting to actually invest in it. So we're not where exactly where we want to be. I would imagine we all feel the same, and you guys probably as well. But I think that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So audiences, any other questions?
I actually have a question.
You have,
Of course I did. That's what I do. So for those of us who are actually interested in this DEI and supplier diversity, how have your, if you are at liberty to speak about this, how have your companies and or enterprises been preparing for these legal challenges that are happening throughout, right? Because it's coming. And so,
Told you that question.
I'm a lawyer. I can't help it. I'm interested because I work for government. So
If you're gonna get the answer, you have to ask the question.
yeah,
Yeah.
closed mouths don't get fed.
That's right.
So PNC has a supplier diversity as well, and what we always say on this question is, we know it's a right thing to do in our community. We serve the 50 states coast to coast, right? And we feel that this is part of our core values. We're gonna stand by it and do it. We've been doing it for several years. It's not just last 4 years, 5 years. We spent $367 million, 2022, over $367 million for I think we're tracking for 2023 again. So we're just gonna keep doing it. We're not impacted. We've done our due diligence at the legal side, but it's the right thing to do for our communities.
I would echo that without speaking on behalf of my legal team.
Totally understood.
Yeah, no, it's about doing the right thing, and it's doing what's right now. Obviously, if there's some legal implications you have to look at, then obviously those are to be considered, largely because we are not just U.S., it's also global, but as far as this is in the U.S., which is where we're primarily based, we might have to look at it and make some considerations, but we're never going to wait for doing the right thing.
Same.
Yeah.
I echo the same.
Yeah. I would say that when you look at the legal challenges that are arising based on some of the decisions of our wonderful court, they're not going to be able to stop the train totally. They might be able to change how we term the train. So affirmative action and acceptance in higher education, instead of it being, race-based anymore. You can't have the races on there, you can't check the boxes, but I can submit my personal statement and I can just drown it in who I am and all the reasons why I'm diverse. I think that type of model will be the pivot as we go forward and these challenges arise. So like in Maryland, when you have the 29% aspirational goal, I think if somebody chooses to try to challenge that, even if we take off all of the different categories that we now have on them, we actually have African American woman, Hispanic woman, Asian woman, Native American. If you want to take off those labels, we can take them off. But then the company, in giving their capability statement or doing that, they're going to put it all in there anyway. You know what I mean? And these 8 associations are going to still exist. And saying I'm a part of these associations and this is who my company is and these are who the founders are will be in the capability statement. And even if we take off the labels for the legal part of it, they're not going to be able to stop this train totally. So that's the way I see it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to put you guys on the spot.
No, you're good.
That's great.
It's actually interesting to hear. The reason I ask is to hear what people who are in this field are seeing, and are experiencing. Is it a complete drawback, or is it a cautionary move forward? And so that's the reason I asked. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just a pivot. Learn how to pivot.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. I think any other question before we adjourn this panel? Thank you so much. Great information. Please do schedule one-on-one, one-to-one. Shake hands with us folks outside. There's a lot more information that they can share, especially on what's upcoming on their list, what's happening. There's a lot of activities. There's a lot of contracting that's to be won out there. So thank you.
And thank you,
Thank you.
Rich. Appreciate it.
Thank you.